you've been telling us that we should not be yelling at our kids. I want to ask you, what does that mean? And what the hell are you talking about?
What an intro. I wouldn't go so far as to say you should not be yelling at your kids. I said I don't want to be yelling at my kids. Here's my 10 million reasons why. So if you want to go straight into that, I think yelling, like anything, is a tool, and it's something that can be used poorly or it can be used well. And I think the well uses of yelling are someone's unsafe, and you need to protect their safety. So getting their attention quickly is a good use of the tool of yelling. I think as a pre-escalator to physical like altercations, I think the yelling at someone is a decent tool. I think it is an incredibly expressive and sharp tool. And I personally see that it's used as a first tool rather than a last tool, or as a down the toolbox sort of tool. So specifically, we're talking in the context of parenting. It's about, for me, not using this tool when it's inappropriate to use it, and seeing if there are less aggressive tools that I could use earlier on, like maybe a softer tool, like a squishy hammer instead of a pickaxe, going at stuff.
I love that. Now, you had mentioned too, no, for those that don't know, Pat is of the Fathers Guild and putting out a ton of great content. And the reason why I bring that up is you even talked about yelling the other day. And right now you've had a yelling challenge where you paid your kids, you paid a jar, all that kinds of stuff. But in the long run, I think it's very interesting the way that you talk about yelling in a way that yelling is almost more for us when we're yelling at our kids than it actually is for our kids. And I kind of wanted to see if you could dive into that a little bit more and tell me what you mean by that.
I think there's a lot of actions that parents take that soothe themselves rather than are the best and most appropriate action for the child. So when we think about parenting in general, there's two kind of layers to it to me. You've got the instantaneous interaction that you're in, and making sure that everything is happening in that interaction. And you have the long-term development of the child, kind of up into the maturity of an adult, right? So you've got this like instantaneous scenario, and then you've got an adult, and so anytime you're parenting, you have to kind of be working on two layers, in my mind, of like, will this solve whatever's going on now? And does it lead to the most resilient, amazing, long-term, awesome adult? And I think that a tool like yelling often solves the problem in the moment. So it can vary, like, hey, I need to be heard, so I'm going to take the idea of yelling quite aggressively to be heard. And I say that is soothing to the adult because it solves the immediate problem. But if we look at the long-term ramifications of that, there is not really a positive long-term outcome of yelling. People will argue that it does something along the lines of making kids more resilient or harder, but that's just fundamentally flawed in terms of there's no data supporting that being yelled at makes you a more resilient individual. So when we use yelling, we are often trying to, like I said, solve the problem that we're currently in, which is how I view that as like, it's for you, it's not for them. Because if it was for them, you'd be like, what's the tool I could use to give them a boundary that would make them a better adult down the road? Say they're pushing buttons or something like that, while also educating them that like, this is how you handle stressful situations without immediately losing your crap and going to a yell. So that's kind of what I mean with yelling is for you, not them.
Yeah. It's funny because you say they could be pushing buttons, and it's like they could be pushing physical buttons while also pushing metaphorical buttons. So there's many of buttons that could be pushed to cause. And I think about it as like an inability to manage our emotions. And I say that because my son and I are going through a lot of conversations when it comes to yelling. And I noticed that there was a time back in our days where I tried to dominate the conversation, right? It was, to your point, like I'm trying to shut it down. And so the bigger and the louder I get, I realize I mean, anyway, what I think I was trying to do as I look back on it is I was trying to put them into a place of fear where it's like, Dad's going to keep getting bigger. Dad's going to keep getting louder. Dad could get scarier unless I stop whatever is making him get to this point. And so, like, to me, that's a lot of these fear aspects. So I wanted to ask you, do you think that it is a fear factor? Is it only about fear? Are there many other levels to this?
It's interesting because I do think that there is a certain level of, especially with young boys, there's a certain level of pushing that you need to know that there's too far, where you go like, no, that's not acceptable, like, and that's for their sake, in the long term of like, hey, you find yourself in a social situation where you push too far, you could get killed, like that's a real thing in today's day and age. So having a sense of fear, like there is a boundary that is inappropriate to cross, I think you can use your not scariness as a father, but your strength to be like, this is a line that you can't cross. And I think that that actually is partly our role as fathers. Now, I think yelling is often not used as just that final end boundary. I think yelling is used way earlier on in the process for people, and people respond in the situation because they are scared. They are embarrassed or scared because their parents yelled at them in whatever scenario, and fear wasn't necessary to solve the problem that we were in, but fear was used. So I think fear is an interesting subject because I do think there should be a certain level of not fear, but like a known strength in your father that they could go to another level, and they can provide that like harsh boundary where if you are really stepping out of line, they could go there and be like, this is inappropriate, you can't do this. And that's like a very rare instance you would need to use that. But I see a lot of people use it all the time as like I'm gonna parent through fear. Like you have to listen to me because I'll whoop you if you don't. It's like there's no other relationship in modern world where someone's gonna whoop your ass if you don't listen to them, unless you're in like a gang. And so it's like,
Or hammered
let's
at a bar.
let's or hammered at a bar, right? So it's like those types of boundaries and relationships can be set in a very different way, through love and respect and communication. But I do think there's a time and place for knowing like, hey, there is a line that if you cross it, that I'm going to go to a place of supreme seriousness that may involve yelling, but it doesn't have to. I think a lot of really scary people don't yell. They go to like, you can just feel it come off of them. If you're like, whoa, like that person, like they'd mess me up if I take this any further. Um, I've met a couple kids who are not my kids who haven't had that boundary set, who have pushed a little too far to where I've set that boundary and been like, that's not where you go with me. And like, and it was another kid and they immediately were like, whoa, like, and then were really close to me afterwards because they're like, oh, there's too far here. Like they're going to be loving and they're going to do all these things. But when I go too far, I know I'm acutely aware of that because I was stopped. But I don't think a lot of adult men use their strength as intentionally, but I think they should, because then it's a significantly more powerful use of it.
Yeah, interesting. You said something in there, the boys versus the girls part. And honestly, as you're talking, I'm kind of like trying to replay a couple times maybe in my mind that I would have, air quotes, gone to the same level as I would with my son Liam, as maybe I would with my two daughters. And man, I feel like I could count them on one hand. With Liam, it's maybe within 3 days, I've already counted 5 times that I feel like that we need to go there, right? And we're working on our relationship, and we're very acute to that. But since you have 4 boys, what are your like? Have you had conversations with different fathers that have either girls involved in the mix, or maybe all girls, and to see what that dynamic, how it's shifted from your dynamic, and then again how you kind of speak about this.
Um, well, again, I'm only speaking to this from the perspective of having boys, so I can't,
Right.
truthfully speak to it from having girls. You might, I could see a scenario where you have a particularly bullheaded daughter to where then like she took it too far too many times. Like, I'm not going to say that no young girls are like that, but I do know that the relationship between father daughter is a different one from what I've seen than father son. I mean, in father son, you're kind of mimicking for them what a man is in the world. And in a father daughter, you're mimicking for them to some degree what their mate is going to be. So, how they're going to allow themselves to be treated by someone of the opposite sex, right? So with a boy, I think that you're kind of setting a boundary of like, hey, if you push other boys too far, here's the line. So it can be a little bit harsher because that's the reality of manhood. Like with more testosterone, we have a more, on an average, a higher general level of aggression. This is on average, and oftentimes things can get very physical, and that's just like the nature of it. But it's not to say that that's okay. It's just to say that that's a reality in the world. So I would say that
Right.
that with girls, it's not quite the same from what I've seen, and I've known a lot of fathers who they have they themselves don't get as triggered by their daughters into the place that's going to make them go to that kind of like, I wish I didn't go there sort of deal.
Yeah.
I at least the men in my life, because the men in my life I have a lot of good men in my life, so that I might be a skewed data point, but like,
Right.
because I've definitely heard horror stories of just men who go there with their daughters, and then their daughters end up, barely surviving childhood and forever have a skewed perspective of what a relationship with a man should be. And
Yeah.
I think that does fall pretty heavily on poor fatherhood.
Yeah, well, it definitely makes me realize that that's a conversation I need to have, and I need to go find somebody, right? That is maybe
Yeah.
more on that woman side, or even like ladies in that sense that are trying to raise young women in the same way that you as a man are trying to raise young men. What I've noticed with Liam, he's 13 right now, and for us, I would say our relationship started to get really tough around like 6, and I think that there's a level set of understanding that's starting to come in, and as that relationship, that tension starts to build and build. I think even more now that puberty is hitting in is because he's started to become a man, and he sees and he knows that I am a man in his life. And I think to you, you kind of said almost like, what's that pecking order? Like, how far can I push this? And I think right now that's what he is finding out. And it's a good thing now that I'm getting better at managing my emotions, because man alive, like it does get to the point where he will stand up, and he's 13 and about an inch shorter than me. So when he stands up, he is in my face, and he'll get in my face and he'll yell at me and scream at me and throw things and stuff. But as I've tried to talk to different therapists and things like that, it does feel like it's like, Dad, I'm becoming a man. When you do this, it's like you're trying to hold me back from becoming a man. And so like we are kind of trying to find maybe that pecking order in our relationship. And it's just, again, in my mind, I'm just playing with concepts and kind of trying to figure this out and just make sure that my son and I have the best relationship. But if we can help others with some of that, man, that's obviously where we want to take this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think each relationship's going to be vastly different. Right? I have a 12-year-old who will be turning 13 this year, and I've never had that interaction with him. But I've had that interaction with my 9-year-old. I've had that interaction with him many times. I've had that interaction with my 2-year-old. Like my 2.5-year-old is a gnarly kid, and I've had those battles to the point where it's like I'm having to physically restrain him at 3, and he's strong as shit, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I have 3 other boys, and I've never got here. So I think each kid is going to bring their own uniqueness. like the reasons for, like, we couldn't be like, Liam's doing this because of XYZ, you know? Like, I think there's a lot of factors in his entire life, his relationships, you know, your role modeling, as well as his genetics, as well as the massive testosterone dumps that are happening, as well as, you know, his social influences and everything in between. Like, there's just such an overwhelming number of factors that could lead to tension in the relationship. I think the only thing that we truly have control over is our response to things and making sure we're not continuing to exacerbate that, right? Just like you said, learning to feel the right emotion or feel the appropriate emotion, or respond to a scenario in the appropriate way, like that's what we have control over. I mean, the hard thing is when we go into like a rage blindness and then we're just like going back at a 12-year-old and it's like, well, he's 12. You know, it's like, you remember how much of a turd you were at 12? You have no sense of that. But it's like, I mean, I've done it to a 3-year-old. So like, I'm not criticizing you if you go back at a 12-year-old. Like, I get it. Like, but what we can really begin to work on is like, where am I at? How am I feeling? What is going on? What is the actual emotion I have right now? Is it fear that my kid's going to not do well in the world? Is it anger? Is it sadness that he's treating me this way? Is it disrespect? Is it like, what is the actual emotion? And can I like tap into that so I don't do something I regret, you know?
Yeah. I think there's even a step back, because I feel like having even an awareness of the fact that you're doing what you're doing is a whole nother level. And so for those that might be like wondering, well, how do I even get to that point? You kind of have to like put yourself on the coals of the fire and say, I'm now going to be paying attention to everything I do when it comes to my son or my daughter or my kids, maybe even your wife, right? Because I have a feeling that this is bigger than just the kids, right? This is probably a family dynamic if we're yelling at people or having these types of conversations. And then once we are aware of those, then it's time to accept those things, right? And I think that like between that exception or accepting and taking the action is kind of like what you were just talking about, where it's like, okay, like what is this emotion? Like what do I really want to showcase here versus like, oh, I'm a 12-year-old yelling at a 12-year-old.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I
Right.
think like you're a coach, right? Like how do you coach people through that? You know, like I said it, awareness, acceptance, action. You may use other aspects.
Yeah. So I generally coach people in fitness. So I haven't coached many people through emotional processes like this, but I have coached myself through this many, many a time. And I think one of the bigger things is recognizing where my levels of health are at in and attention, right? So if I am not doing as good, then my responses to things are going to be inappropriate. So, like, if I am not as healthy as I could be, if I haven't trained, if I haven't slept well, if I have drank the night before, if I've currently in a fight with or stressed out because of work, like I need to know the states that I'm in to be like, ooh, I'm gonna be more pissed off by dumb stuff right now, and I need to be more aware of that. So I think the first step, just almost like you said, was awareness, awareness of what's going on. And I think one of the most profound tools for awareness is, it sounds crazy, but talking to yourself. So like literally talking to yourself. A lot of people think, like a lot of people sit there and they think through their head really fast, but they don't actually talk to themselves because it is socially unacceptable to say the words out loud to yourself. Like, so here's how I was feeling today, and blah, 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 right? You seem like a crazy person. That being said, a socially acceptable way to talk to yourself is journaling. And journaling is exactly that. You have all of these thoughts, you have all of these things that are going on, and you're like, blah, 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 and you have to try to slow your hand down slow enough to actually write them out. And you start to get into this flow of being like, okay, I have all of these things. What am I actually going to put onto paper? What am I actually, right now I feel like life is really heavy. And then I go, okay, well, what's heavy about it? You know, I feel like work isn't going how I want it to. Is there anything I could do about that? Well, what specific parts about work? And like you have these conversations with yourself that you would have verbally if it was socially acceptable, but you can do it in writing. And I think the hard part about that for people is a lot of people are not writers. And it's very, I say, emotionally and psychologically draining to sit down and do that because we're so stimulated all the time by like phone and TV and blah blah blah. Like it's so easy to be like, well, I'm just gonna disconnect and disassociate, and not feel this thing. And so, you and I, we went on a trip, a soul searching adventure. That's where we met years ago. How long ago was that now? 4 years ago? 5 years ago?
Yeah, early 2022.
Okay, early 2022. And for me, I never journaled. I owned many journals, but I had never journaled my whole life. And I have a supreme insecurity about my spelling because I think it makes me seem unintelligent, and I know I'm unintelligent. I have pretty bad insecurity about my quality of my handwriting. It's terrible. So when I would write, I'd hope people like weren't looking over my shoulder, things like that. And but on that trip, I had so much space and so much time to just be in my head with no other stimulation. And I realized I had, 30 years worth of thoughts to put down on paper. And it just uncorked this relationship with myself of like, I'm going to be far more intentional and present with myself, my own feelings, my own thoughts, and I can start to put this on paper to where I can start working on stuff. Because when you're thinking about stuff, you can't really work on it. It's not real until you articulate it or until you write it. And that conversation first starts with yourself, and then once you start doing that, you'll start, okay, I want this, and then here's how I'm gonna do this. And then 6 months later, you look at it and you're like, hey, I kind of did that. And then you do it, and you do it again and again and again, and that's the process that I would start people with. So if I was coaching someone who wanted to be better, I would make them first start either writing or, if you want to, talk to yourself. But writing is usually the more socially acceptable.
And I think too, like, so somebody that might be listening, don't be over it, that's maybe never journaled or afraid of journaling, to what you said. Like, just because we're using the word journal doesn't mean you need to have something that says journal on it. You could literally go get a Post-it note, and if you have a shitty day and you start with shitty day on the Post-it note, that is a hell of a great, that's one step past not doing it. And you won the day when it comes to that. And if anybody's kind of like, well, but I like an idea of a process, I used the 5-minute journal for about 2 years after the soul searching trip, because I was someone who was kind of like, I just want a little bit of help, right? And I really enjoyed that. And so, if that's something that's helpful, awesome.
That's awesome. My brain actually works the opposite. If you tell me like, what were you grateful for today? I'd be like, I don't know, like food. I like food. Like every time I every time I have prompts, I'm like, I don't know. It's like always really shallow answers because it's not what I'm thinking about. But I get it. I've tried to use prompted journals for a while. I need really deep prompts that are super, like the trip we went on was so good because it had such deep prompts, and it was like, okay, all right. Let's go. Like that was worthy for me. But I find so many short journals are just like checking a box. And these days, like, I've filled dozens of journals since that trip. Like, just sitting on my desk right here, there's 2 separate journals. There's a stack of them right there of like 8 more. Like it's great. But again, just like you said, just start but if I was you, if you really wanted to be different, I would find a way to be in nature for about 4 days. So like, find a way to go, okay, I'm going to take 4 days to get away from phones, responsibility, and I'm just going to be out there with a journal. I could be out there with my son or my daughter, whatever it is, myself, maybe some other dudes, and I'm just gonna like get away and just think, because that process is there's a quote I really love. It was from a South African bush guide, and he said the modern world is 3 days deep, and he was essentially saying that all of the stimulation, all of the overwhelm, all of these things that we have, it's about the 3rd day where you come out of it. Like day 1 and day 2, you're still kind of overstimulated. You're still kind of trying to find your stuff. It's a little annoying. But on that 3rd day, you can just have this sigh of like, oh, I've put it all down, and you can be present and you can look around and you can see the birds, and like this thing just gets uncorked. So spend 4 days, at like 3 to 4 days, just uncork that, like sit out there and just be. It'll be if you do it with intention, it could be a completely life-changing experience.
Yeah, and for those that are kind of, again, like I said, looking for that process, like I believe that you've actually started taking, I don't know what the right word is, reservations or like holding spots for Fathers Guild like weekends, right? Like you're kind of
Yeah,
trying to
well,
see how this retreat could look like, right?
yeah, and so I did not say all that to promote this retreat, and I
It
did
just
not talk
felt
to
like the
Brian
right
beforehand.
pivot. It just
Well,
felt like the right pivot. I'm not gonna lie.
well, so like I had such a profound experience on the one we did with Mike Kaz, and I've really wanted to do something like that since, and I have an amazing property to do that on. I have 5 acres in the mountains of Santa Cruz, and I've done 3 so far, and I did them with coaches. So I didn't take fathers specifically. I took CrossFit coaches, and basically with all of my thoughts around pulling people out of their homes and the things they were doing in nature and yummy food and some clear journal prompts, and then space and time and some like intentional discomfort, some somatic work, some hot, sauna, cold plunge, like very intentional days that were also very restful. I had an amazing amount of success with the 3 groups that I've done. So I was like, I think I'm ready to do fathers. So where I am going to do fathers, it's coming up in like a month. I think we're going to launch the first one.
That's so
So
cool.
it'll be really cool, and I'm really excited to take it and make it like. Here's the deal. I profit from this financially. Like this is something that I will make money on. But beyond that, the people who walk away from this, and like Brian, like when you walk away from an event that like touches you on a level that gives you a perspective shift, you just carry yourself in the world differently than you did before. And the impact you can make is just that much greater. So like when I walked away from the retreat that I did, I was like, that was, how did 3 days completely alter the course of my personality? And it's like when someone holds the space like Mike did and creates the right prompts and creates the right environment, it's just like you can have such a profound shift, and it doesn't take as much as people think. People think it's like years of work, and it's like, nah, like it will be years of work to really refine it, but like that paradigm shift takes a weekend. It takes a couple days. And I want to provide that space for fathers and men, because I don't think that there's a lot of good ones out there. There's some good ones, but there's not run by me, and I'm going to do a good job.
Do them better. You're going to do them better. Yeah. Soul searching. I mean, but the thing is like that was also for profit, right? We paid Mike to be there, to be able to go on that retreat. And that the thing is that it's worth the value, right?
Absolutely.
What I paid for it, I got out tenfold to be able to come home, not just a better human in the moment, but understanding how I wanted to be a better human for the rest of my life. And like I could start to see the trajectory of that path that I knew I was going to be on, the journey, if you will. And so it was like there's always a dollar amount that you can't afford, but there's like almost like it didn't matter. Like it for me at the time, it needed to be spent. And I know that other people are going to kind of be in that place. So I don't think it's shameful to tell people that you're trying to help them. And yes, to organize those things, it costs money. So
for sure. And and I'm here. I'm here for you if you need it. Check it out.
I love it.
FathersGuild.com.
Right. I'm hoping. I'm racing the rest of this year, and so a lot of my money's been going to that, right? Following the National Enduro Series with the dirt bike stuff that I love to do, and so I'm hoping that 26 or 27, my hope for you is that this only grows and that you can continue to have those, and so sometime maybe late 26 or early 27, that could be something that I could be able to kind of like figure out to be able to go on, because I'm excited for what it is. Everything I learned about you from soul searching and then watching everything that you've created and the man that you've become and the father that you're showing us you are, like I know that weekend would be something that would continue the journey for me that we talked about. So
hell yeah, man.
Obviously haven't even been, but highly praising it.
Well, I would be honored to have you. And I think, remember one of the things that was fun about the one that we did is like we had to cook all our own meals, right? And we all had those MREs where we were just, constipated for a week afterwards.
We all got a little stopped up.
Right. So what I've done with this retreat is my wife cooks all the meals, and she makes bomb meals. We're like skirt steak tacos, and we're doing like pulled pork filled hamburgers, and we're doing like just amazing food every meal, 3 meals a day. So like it's she does homemade bread every morning, brings it down, like does bowls of homemade granola, eggs from our farm. It's like it's like take that one aspect of it and elevate it, and like that was that was something that I really wanted to do. I was like, we're gonna make this really nice.
Nobody needs to leave my retreats constipated. That's rule number one.
Although I did like those
I love it.
MREs.
It was a whole new experience, if nothing else. So it's interesting that we're kind of talking about this in the soul searching retreat, because one of the things that you mentioned there was that you didn't know how to show up on social media. And so at the time, I don't know if the Father's Guild was something that was on your mind, but you were talking about like, I don't know who to be me on the internet, right? Because you know that you have a voice from your CrossFit past and you wanted to leverage that in some way. And it was interesting, but now you're essentially viral, right? You have a reel that has like 55 million views on it. And so I kind of wanted you to like, you've been on a journey, and I want to know what that felt like from the moment where you were like, I am going to talk to a camera and help dads, fathers and husbands, to like the point where you now are almost viscerally hated because you've shown something, right? Now, granted, there's sides to it, of course, but I mean, like, I watched the comments and I went back and looked at them, like, some of that shit's ridiculous.
Well, that's so funny. You know, what's actually interesting is I forgot that that was a big conversation that I was having with myself on that trip. You know, so much of my focus and takeaway was around the intention around journaling and the conversation or relationship with my mother that we talked about on that soul searching trip. I actually forgot that component until you just mentioned it now. And that was a huge part of the conversation, was like, I hated social media, and I hate social media even more so then. And I was very jaded by it because I had been essentially forced to do it for multiple employers, and I didn't understand how it worked. Like I everything I made that I cared about, people just didn't look at. And I was like, I don't care that you don't look at it, but this is what I care about. And then I'd make some dumb stuff and people would like it. And I'm like, I don't want to just make dumb stuff. Like, what you're telling me, internet, is I need to make dumb stuff, right? And so I actually had taken this big long hiatus away from social media entirely. And on that trip, I had kind of been like, I've got a lot to say. Like, I've got a lot, like, in the coaching world, I've got so much to say. Like, I've spent 20 years in the same profession, and I can articulate the concepts really, really straightforward. And they're not hard concepts to me, but like, I can phrase them in a way they're understood. And then in a fatherhood sense, I love the work that goes into fatherhood, but also the joy that you get from it. And I've got so much that I think so many people would want, like in terms of the relationships they have with their kids, the clarity of meaning in their lives, the relationship they have with their wives, the levels of intimacy, like all of those things, like I have those, and I've intentionally created and worked on them. So having a conversation around that was something I wanted to share and just open up this conversation on fatherhood. But like you said, that relationship with social media was so in the dumps that I'm like, who cares? Like anything anything that I put out that I care about, like, people don't care about. It seems. And so what I did is I actually started to sit down, and I think you and I have talked about this once before, but like I was like, well, what is the game of social media? Because there's a game. Like, it's not straightforward. It's not just like, make good content, people see it. No, because people are not there to necessarily see your good content. They're there to be entertained to some degree. And the way we have been conditioned on social platforms is to essentially move beyond whatever we're currently on. So whatever we're on, our brain is trying to go to the next thing. It's trying to be like, I don't, like, come on, keep moving, keep going, because of the way
Swipe.
we are conditioned to scroll or swipe. And I actually heard it articulated really well by, it was this editor who was talking about editing, I think it was Mr. Beast's videos, and he was being like, look, what you're battling is people's desire to swipe. And so if you can give them a reason not to swipe, they will stay for your content. Now, there's two ways you can do that. You can do something that is, destructive, and you can do it where it's controversial, and you can do it where it's sexy or whatever it is. I guess not two ways. There's a lot of those. But there's a less healthy way, in my opinion, and there's a more healthy way. But either way, you have to provide a hook. Like you have, and that's the game. There has to be a hook, and then there has to be compelling video and or story that gets people to stay. And then you can provide value with your, like, okay, here's what I actually want to say. And now that you're here, you'll listen. And then you go from there, and then people will watch your video. But then the other layer on it that was really important for me was recognizing that a big part of being seen by more people was creating content that was not only something that someone would look at and connect with, but look at, connect with, and then want to show to somebody else. Because that step is the thing that makes it so other people will see the content that you make. So you can make something that's really engaged with by your people, but if they don't start sharing it with others, unless you just get like lucky and it like hits the algorithm just right, you're screwed. So what I started doing was going at content. I started the Father's Guild account, and I was like, I'm just going to put out my thoughts on fatherhood, but I'm going to tinker with these variables: shareability, hook, and then compelling content. So like what is the visual and audio story going? And as I started tinkering with those, like I would start with a concept. This is what I want to say. Now, how am I going to put the things around it that make it so people hear my nugget? and as I started tinkering with those, I made this backlog of content that was all about fatherhood and my thoughts on it. And then one post went really viral, and it was like, pow. And I was like, whoa, like, what was that? And that gained me like 50,000 followers in like, a couple days. And I was like, huh? And I had other posts go viral, but not like this, and not with an account that was all the same stuff. So there's no, like, you don't show up at the Father's Guild and go, what is this about? You go, this is for fathers, talking about fathers. And it's the same guy talking about fathers over and over again. So like, if something goes viral, they'll go, oh, I want to see more of this. And that was essentially the difference in my relationship to social, is I figured out the game of it, which made it far more compelling for me to put out and put my heart into content that I enjoyed, is because if it doesn't do well, I get it. I go, that makes sense. That didn't do well. And you look at it and you're like, and then it's not like you can perfectly predict it, but if I want something to do really well, all I got to do is wrap it in that package, and you can see how well it works. And that doesn't mean I make all my content like that. There's plenty of content that I'm like, I'm just going to put this out because it's my thought, and that's how I want to do it. But that acceptance of the game and then playing the game allowed me to tell my story and has made it more compelling for me to be continued engaged. The other thing was the journaling uncorked my creativity. Like I have so many ideas. Like, Brian, no joke, I have 2 or 3 journals that are one-liner ideas that are quite compelling ideas for videos. I have 125. I'll be out and about, and I'll like, okay, this is an idea for blah blah blah. 125 of those that I just put into a folder that I have a VA team going through and pulling from and making blog posts out of. Like, my brain is constantly producing ideas, and I'm doing this across 3 channels now, and it's like, it's not hard. Like, that part of it is no longer hard for me. Just something about like the creativity being uncorked, and then realizing that if I want it to go places, I just need to package it right, made it so like I could come up with 200 ideas. You and I could sit here for another couple hours, and I could just have the ideas. And I think a lot of us have this in us, but we have to find the right circumstances to do so.
I think you're right. I think we do. And I've found that in and of myself with the seat time account that I run on the dirt bike side of things. Dirt bikes is so niche. It's like whatever, whatever. But I do play and have a lot of fun. And I love sitting down to the exact extent that you said. It's like, okay, I got to change a tire and I'm going to make a video. But how do I make changing a tire interesting, fun, or something that somebody's like, I got to send this to this guy because it's funny, because it's stupid, or it's a tip or trick that maybe they never thought of before. And then, of course,
Totally.
I'm like, different facial hair, hats backwards, whatever, using a wrench as a microphone. Again, just like, how can it be just kind of like goofy enough? I don't know, but I love that kind of stuff. So
Totally.
when you posted the video of you tossing your kids under the bed, which again is you showing your love, was there any of that in there that you were like, okay, cool, obviously I've got a hook because I'm throwing my child in slow motion? Or was it just like, this is a moment that I want to share because it's how I show my love?
So I've posted a few of me throwing my kids. One I posted a long time ago of me throwing just my kids up in the air and catching them, and it was in slow motion, and he would come down, and it got, you could see the polarity of that. There's people who are like, that's really dangerous, and there's people who are like, that's foundational to childhood. And I happen to fall on the side of that's foundational to childhood. I also happen to be, not to be arrogant, but very strong and very coordinated. So throwing my kid up in the air and catching my kid is not a difficult thing for me to do. I had a woman actually comment on that post at one point saying like, my daughter died this way. And I had a DM interaction with her where her husband tossed her daughter, missed the catch, dropped her on cement, killed her daughter. So that was a very real, back and forth, right, where she's like, this is traumatic for me. And I'm like, I understand that, but this is also very foundational to a father's love. And I didn't say it quite like that, but like I showed as much empathy as I could for it, just because that's a horrific scenario. And then you go forward being like, I'm going to be extra cautious. And if you're weak and uncoordinated, don't throw your kids, like
right.
But so like that video, I've thrown a few, and I recognize that there's a polarity there. So that in and of itself is engaging. And I happen to believe that that's a good thing to do. So I'm still going to promote that as like, this is positive play with the child. The one that went really viral was me actually throwing my boys onto the bed. It was me, like they were coming at me and I would catch them and push them. And I had posted it on my personal account. And that was one of the first posts that ever went viral for my personal account like years ago. So I knew it would work. So like I posted on my personal account years ago, and the comments in that were like just two ends of the spectrum, like child abuse, like foundational human experience, right? And so I remember that was one of the first times where I was like really caught off guard by people's perception of the scenario. I was like, how did you see that as child abuse? The kids were laughing. They were landing on pillows. Like, clearly I'm enjoying this moment and they're enjoying this moment. Like, how did you... Whoa. So that was the first time years ago that happened. So I figured I'd repost it on the Fathers Guild account, because I think part of what I do with that account, one of it is going to be education, another one of it is going to be inspiration, and the other one would be like entertainment / inspiration, or entertainment kind of relays on those other two. And to me, that was inspiration. It's like, this is what fathers should be. Like, fathers should be able to throw their kids on the bed, barring any sort of physiological disabilities. Like, they should be able to throw their kids, and their kids should laugh and enjoy it and do this stuff. And if you're not doing this, you probably should start. So I posted that with my mindset and the conversation around of like, when I posted this X number of years ago, it went really viral and people told me that I was abusing my kids. I find it fascinating. And like, that was the conversation I had in the quote of that. And that post then went super viral again. Like you said, I think it was 55 million views or 60 million views or something like that. I was like, whoa, this is still clearly a really controversial. I think it was that was a perfect scenario too, because at the time I was quite muscular. So like, there's a shirtless dude who's kind of muscular in the video.
And I think your head was shaved too, so it's
no, it was long,
like it's
kind long of, hair.
Was it? Okay,
it was long hair. So it's like I looked like Thor kind of. So like this, and so you had like this kind of visual, and then the slow motion of the kids like flying through the air, and then the controversy of it all. So like, I knew what I was doing with that. I didn't know it would do that. That was crazy. But yeah, that one made sense when it went viral. And there's a lot of hate, but that's okay. I'm a big boy.
Yeah. Well, oh, to your point, I don't know that a lot of people are big boys, right? In the sense of like, it's okay to have honest conversations with people, but it's also different to be like to just toss around hate, if that makes sense. And so I kind of like if it's not something that gets under your skin, maybe like speak to those that it would get under their skin. Like how because I do think that there's a lot of people that want to share their moments with their kids and talk about being a dad. And again, be vulnerable in the things that they've learned because they've made mistakes. So they failed at a thing, they learned, and now they want to help other people teach. But they might be afraid that they're throwing their kids on the bed, but they want to share that and they don't want to actually get the hate back from that.
Sure. I mean, the reality is if you post anything, it's public domain. Unless you're a private account, anyone can see it and anyone can tell you that you're lame. And a lot of people will want to do so. In my mind, if someone goes out of their way to look at a minute long clip and tell me I'm a terrible person and not take any time to look at any of the other content I have or look at my other profiles or not even know me but wants to like tear me down for it, that's them hurting. Like that's not me, and I'm fundamentally in alignment values wise, so with myself. And so let me take it back a step. I think in order for you to be okay with people throwing hate your way, you need to know that the things you're doing are in alignment with your own integrity, right? Everything I do is directly in line with my integrity. If someone wants to challenge something, I'll tell you 6 reasons why I'm doing it. Or I'll be like, that's a good point. I should probably do it differently. Like, I'm not insecure with my reasons or presence or anything because I tell the truth to the world and I tell the truth to myself. And that honesty and integrity around my stuff allows me to be okay with myself. So when someone comes and says, you suck because of XYZ, I know I don't suck because that XYZ does not pertain to me. That's purely a reflection on you. And like the throwing the kids on the bed one was interesting. That's easy to dismiss, right? Because it's like people are overly cautious in today's world. They're very fear-mongery, overly cautious. You're going to break your kid's neck. And you're like, no, you're crazy. The ones that were really interesting were like around the no yelling ones. Like I would get these comments being like, by not yelling out your kids, you're making your kids trans. And you're like, okay, that's hateful on another of sections, but I'm like really curious about the link that you're making to not yelling at them and then them transitioning genders. Like and then like you'd have ones that sit outside that were like, your kids are going to work for my kids someday because they're going to be such pussies when they grow up. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, and so like you can clearly feel someone's own insecurities when they comment on something like that. And it's I guess what I would say to people who are posting stuff out there is you're going to get that. And I think what the best thing to do is instead of engaging with it like, no, your kids suck, or whatever it is, ask questions because the questions they 99% of the time don't respond to, and the 1% of the time that they do respond, like sometimes you just realize that they're absolutely crazy, and then the other 0.5% of the time they go, you know what? I didn't realize there was a real person behind this account. I apologize for what I said, and I feel kind of bad. And and so what I've done with a lot of comments, especially the funny ones, like I'll be like, explain to me the link between this and this. Like, what's the mechanism there? Or I'll like go in and be like, that's an interesting thought. What makes you think that from this 30-second reel? Or have you checked out any of my other reels to see if what you're saying right now is true? Just ask questions, and people like you immediately get the sense of they're just on there to troll, or they're like, I feel kind of embarrassed that I put that there. There has been a couple people that like were wasting their life replying to me. Like they were just getting back and forth, and I was just like, and block, but it's very rare. Yeah, I'm doing, and the way I phrase it is I'm like, hey, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to block you, but not for my sake. This is for your sake, so you stop wasting your life on my internet account. And it yeah, but the vast majority, like, so especially with the stuff I put out, I've had, no joke, in the entire time I've run the Fathers Guild, 0 negative DMs. Direct messages, I've only had positive. I've had hundreds of direct messages. 0 negative direct messages. That means, like, people who actually are paying attention, who like have something to say, they're going to direct message you if they really want to have that conversation. And the vast majority of them that throw hate are just in the comments, and it's surface level. And you just have to be like, that's the nature of the internet, and it says more about them than it does about you. But
Yeah. No.
You have to keep an open mind. Like, if someone says something to your post and you listen to it and you go, huh, you're kind of right. Then you can be like, well, maybe I can grow from this, because there might be some truth in there. Like, I made a post once that was basically being like, don't tell people what to do. I still think, but it's non-congruous with an internet account that talks about what I think people should do. And I don't, right? So, like, I don't necessarily disagree with not telling people what to do, because I still feel like my account doesn't say you have to do this. It says, like, this is what I do and this is how it goes. But I do feel like it's too much of an overlap. And so I make this post, and it's like, and I'm like, that's hypocritical. And I was like, that's a good point, and pull it down.
Yep.
I can't have that be a strong stance, because it's not truly true. If I really believed in that, I wouldn't have this account.
Right. Well, on that of like not telling people what to do, but potentially telling people what to do with everything, with telling people maybe what they should do or how they could think about becoming a better father. Like, with everything that you've been through, right, with your 4 boys, and I know that you and your wife have gone through a lot of different areas and this, that, the other. Like, what are the key points that anyone who wants to feel better as a father, act better as a father, be a better father, where do they start?
A big key / corny ass way of focusing about this is put your own oxygen mask on first. I think you need to take care of yourself first and foremost, on a fundamental level, just like a basic level. That doesn't mean you need to have 6 vacations a year and need to drive the fancy car and I got to take care of myself. Like, I need to work out 2 hours a day. Yeah, it makes me feel good. It's like, no, you're jerking off at that point in time. But you do need to have some pretty basic needs met. Like, you need to take care of your health. That involves sleep, eat, and like play. So, like, you need to play a little bit. You need to have some sort of outlet that fills your cup, so to speak. You need to try to prioritize sleep if possible. If you can't, it's okay. Don't ruin yourself there, but try to figure out a way to prioritize some sleep. And then you need to, pay attention to what you're eating and whether or not you're training. So, like, these basic health markers, like, it doesn't need to be anything fancy. It doesn't need to be over the top, but you do need to physiologically take care of yourself, which then will lead towards things like journaling and spending time writing and reflecting and talking to yourself about, hey, what's going on with me? So making sure your head's right. So I say, to be a better father, to be a better husband, to be a better things, you kind of got to be a better person. So getting your basic needs met and then learning how to communicate when they're not being met makes everything better, because then you can start focusing on, okay, now what can I do for other people? So for me, it's get your basic needs met, and then do your very best to outservice your partner. And I think there's different stages of life that this goes through. So, like, there's times where you can be really good and present and set up dates and do all the things and service them. And there's other times where, like, you can't, and, like, you just got to slug it out through life. But once your base needs are met, try to outservice your partner. And then realize that time is the currency of children. So presence and time are what you have to do. Things are not a substitute for time. Purchasing things and buying your kids gifts and doing all that stuff, while a form of love, are by no means a substitute for time and attention. And if you struggle with time and attention with your kids, Recognize that you can do time and attention in activities that are more suited to you. I think people will be like, I need to spend time and attention with my kids, so I'll take them to the park and then, go get ice cream afterwards. It's like, no, dude, make them work in the yard with you for 2 hours and give them no other options. Do not allow them to sit on their phone. Do not allow them to lock themselves in their room. Do not allow them all of these devices that distract them from the real world. You just bring them with you to do the things that you would normally do, and they'll join in. Let them cook with you. Let them play with you. Let them just like be with them and try to be as present as you can. So,
How
I think
to kind of like, what's the flip side of that? Like within that was a lot of the kids being with you. How does one think about that when it's like it's the kids thing, but it's not your thing? And so how do you then jump in on their level with their thing?
I think their thing is an interesting statement because their things are only things that you would have allowed them to do or put them in, right? So like you're the parent, so you've filtered it to some degree. Like I wouldn't let my son all of a sudden start taking, pole dancing classes. I'd be like, you can wait till you're 18. We're gonna do something else. But but to that statement, like I think you do control the environment that your kids are in. But if they've chosen something, like say my son's really into soccer, so what is the thing I can do with them? Well, I can play soccer with them, or I can take them to soccer, and I can be present while I'm at soccer. I can take my phone, I can turn my phone off, put it away, and watch them play soccer. And then when they come off the field, say, man, I loved watching you play soccer. That was awesome. And that's it. Like just being present in the thing that they want to do. I think there is a sense of playing with them too. Like you do have to make some sacrifices of like, my son was like, hey, you want to play badminton? I'm like, dude, I'm going to kick your ass. Like, I don't really want to play badminton, but sure, let's play badminton, Yeah, absolutely. So we can play badminton. Or like last night, my sons wanted to play a game called Killer Bunnies, which is like a great card game, but it takes hours. And I'm like, I don't want to, but I should probably say yes. Because like if your kids are asking you to do stuff, like that means they want your attention, and that's an opportunity to say yes. So when you have the opportunity to say yes, say yes. Like, and pull your head out of your ass. Like, yeah, it's not as fun as it could be, but then all the other times just make it what you want to be. Like use that as a time where you can be like, well, don't want that to happen again. I'm going to do the thing I want to do and bring them with me,
Yeah.
But make sure you are going out of your way to spend that time and that presence and that energy on them. This process goes fast, man. We are not parents to young kids for very long. So anytime you can say yes, try.
Yeah. I think it could bring us right into the whole no regrets conversation that you've been having, and it's something that I wanted to talk about. And I know we're coming to our time here that we have that, but in the long run, like what you said there, it's like if they ask you to do something, do it. Like say yes. I think like I as well remember when I kind of had to make that switch because for so long it was all about, well, I have to wake up to go work out in the morning. I'm going to go to work and then I'm going to come home and I got to edit my seat time videos. I'm going to do all that. And then it's 10:30. So I got to have my one beer or my last beer before it's 11 because I don't drink, after 11 because I got to wake up early, right? Like, exactly. It's like, it's 10:50. Can still get one more in.
Get in, baby. Woo!
And it's like, once I started to realize, it's like, dude, the second they walk in, they've given me their time. They want to be with me. And unless it is just like something that just can't be dropped, it's like, I got to drop it. Even if it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, like I got to give them that time. Well, I really appreciate you sharing everything. Look, I guess if there's a way to wrap up, like maybe like, what did I miss? Is there anything that you just kind of like figure a way that you were like, something to think on?
Give yourself grace. You're gonna screw it up. You can't beat yourself up. Like it's like you can beat yourself up like for a second, and then you go, okay, how can I be better next time? And that's it. And like that journaling helps with that because you can write it down. I screwed this up. I'm gonna try to not do this, and then you'll screw it up again. You'll look at it and be, fuck, I screwed it up. I'm gonna try this, and like it just gives you this tangible data. So like recognize you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna say no. You're gonna have momentary regrets. Don't make it a permanent regret. Learn to say I'm sorry. Learn to unpack things later. Learn to pay attention to what caused things to screw up. Like be like, I screwed up there. what in my day led me to here? And you'll start to have these epiphanies of like, there's these things that get in the way of you being how you want. But at the same time, it's okay. Like, you're gonna make mistakes. We all make mistakes. No one instance defined a childhood for the most part when it came to something, barring some catastrophic accident. But like, the idea is like, you're gonna screw up. Give yourself grace. You'll be okay. But keep coming back. Keep trying to be better. Keep like, there's a giant demographic of men and fathers who are coming back and trying to get as much joy from this process as possible. And I am one of them.
Apologizing to your kids is showing them the humility that you then want them to be able to show other people. So they may, that's one thing I've learned is that's such a hard conversation but I've gotten way better at it now. So like, where does, like, with all the retreats we talked about, you're on the socials, like, where do you send people? I hope that one day you're writing a book. I'd love to read that. But, where do people find you?
Thefathersguild.com. You can find me there, or at The Fathers Guild on Instagram, or The Fathers Guild on YouTube. Very, very small account there. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
You got to start somewhere. Literally, that's okay. We appreciate it. Well, dude, thank you very much for your time. And I guess I'll see you online.
Hell yeah, man. Excited to see you there, and then see you in person here.
Thank you very much for what I'm calling the first episode of Deepish Conversations. Maybe this is a podcast. Maybe it's just me talking to people on the internet. I have no idea. What I would like to know, though, is what did you think? You made it this far. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Pat Barber. So please give me your comments on the way that this went. Are there other guests? Specifically, I would love to talk to any other kind of man that is out there talking about raising daughters. I have 2 daughters, and I have a son, Liam. Pat has been very helpful with the Father's Gift for the way that I have conversations to my son, Liam. But I'd love to be able to have conversations with a man and or a woman that is talking about the ways that they are helping to raise their daughters and the relationship that they're having there. Other than that, guys, do something today that is going to make you feel awesome. If you want to see more of what's coming, obviously, please give it a subscribe. Make your like the thing, leave a comment, swipe up, whatever the kids are doing these days. I really appreciate it. See you for the next one. Peace.